Greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining me again for another edition of Electric Avenue's YouTube updates. I'm doing the new releases for May 24th, 2024. That's a lot of 24s. Yeah, so we're heading into Memorial Day weekend. Typically, this is a lighter week for new releases, so I don't have quite as much to show. So those of you who are frustrated with my long videos, you'll be off the hook this week as far as the length of the video. So let me just mention a couple things before I start here. First thing is I have to mention this album, which came out last week, and I got it a couple minutes after I filmed the video, which was Billie Eilish's new album, Hit Me Hard and Soft. And I think the album the title is fairly descriptive of the sound of the record. There's a lot of very soft passages. She's becoming the queen of the soft singing, the breathy and high range and whatever, and then sort of letting you have the power when it's called upon. I think that's great. It might leave some people running for the volume dial on their stereo to try and figure out what the best level is to set that at, but it's sort of a very sort of self-referential kind of lyrically album about where she is at this point in her life. And the first song is very quiet and breathy, skinny, and then that's followed by Lunch, which features the lyric, "I could eat that girl for lunch as she dances on my tongue." A little bit racy. No parental advisory, but hey, you know, she's not using any curse bombs, so I don't see a need for it. I just sort of feel a little weird playing it sometimes when there's little kids in the store, but you know, to each their own. Back in the day, Prince got a lot of flack for using the word masturbation in Darling Nikki, and the PMRC was all over him for that, for Purple Rain, that album, and that wasn't really a curse word. I wouldn't consider that a curse word, but you know, I guess sometimes it's the context of the words really more than anything. But anyway, I don't know what their rules are anymore for what gets a label and what doesn't. The Taylor Swift album has a bunch of F-bombs on it, and it doesn't have a sticker either, so go figure. You know, when you're so popular and it doesn't even matter to the kids what you're saying, you know, they just want to have it. So but I will say, you know, there's some people that were out there trying to kind of sabotage Billie on the album itself, on the pressing of it, and I don't know, I haven't bought it, so I can't really comment on that, but I think it's kind of crappy that you're out there on day one trying to undermine the artist. Like, at least let the people, you know, buy it, and if they think that it sounds terrible or something, I don't know, let them deal with the stores or return it themselves. I mean, a lot of people might think it sounds good, so I haven't had any complaints, so maybe that's just one person's sort of loud opinion. I don't know. I'm not really watching all that stuff, but it is frustrating for the artist, I think, because they're just trying to promote their record, and anyway, a lot of it's out of their control. It's done by big record companies. So, all right, that being said, let me get on to this week's new releases, because that's what you came here for. So I think the big thing this week to mention is the Bowie reissues that are coming out. This one, Diamond Dogs, you know, it's one of his more interesting, I don't know if it's his best, I wouldn't call it his best, but one of his better albums of the 70s, which that even is sort of an inaccurate statement because he didn't really have any bad albums in the 70s. Some people might say Pinups is lesser. Maybe that's the only one. I don't know. But I did really like this album, and it's sort of, he's trying to break from the Ziggy thing, and this is the mid-70s. So this album is actually being reissued on the exact 50th anniversary date of when it was originally released, May 24th, 1974, which is kind of cool. And then this is a half-speed master version. So they've been doing a lot of these lately for him, and they sound great. And this album features Diamond Dogs, the title track. Also features Rebel Rebel, pretty big hit. And then the rest of the album is kind of interesting because it's a little bit like he started drifting a little more towards that Philly soul sound. So there's a little of that, a little of mixing in of Orwellian sort of themes of like 1984 and the end times and whatever. Very apocalyptic sort of. And then there's kind of an interesting suite of songs on side A, the Sweet Thing Candidate sort of group of songs. So interesting record. And then he was trying to do a stage, like Broadway type production of it, or a stage production, and ended up sort of scrapping that idea and then moving on to Young Americans as his next record. Came to Philly and recorded that. So sort of a transitional record in a way, but very good. And then also there was a picture disc, because you want to see this picture spinning around on your turntable. I will say that the dogs still are sort of anatomically neutered, so yeah. I don't know if we're ever going to see those pictures on the covers again. All right, the brand new album this week from 21 Pilots. This is their first album since Scaled and Icy, which was like 3 years ago. And that album was sort of met with kind of mixed feelings. And this is supposed to be more of a return to their the sound that people like from them, called Clancy. This is the clear red splatter vinyl indie retail exclusive, and if you buy it at an indie store for a limited time, you get this handy dandy plastic overlay which you can put on the record, and it makes the cover look cool. I'm just hoping, I think that these are now being made with like whatever the PVC type stuff was that they were using that used to damage the records. I think they've moved away from that, but it does kind of make the album look a little cooler. So anyway, that's an indie retail exclusive gift for a little bit. The other one that comes out this week that's sort of similar in that sense is Wallows and their new album and Model. And both Wallows, say 21 Pilots started getting popular before the pandemic, but Wallows kind of blew up their popularity wise during the last part of the pandemic. And so they're kind of a newish band, I suppose, in that sense, even though they've had like 4 or 5 albums. But again, you get this cool overlay for a little bit, and so it looks like they're actually in the room instead of just an empty room. All right. You can do with that what you want. It's sort of interesting what they come up with as like value added type stuff these days. So whatever, anything is better than nothing usually. So all right, if you like sort of like dream rock type shoegaze but a little heavier, Dive, spelled D-I-I-V. A lot of people say Div or whatever. I believe it's Dive. This is the indie record store exclusive limited edition green vinyl. It's of their new album, Frog in Boiling Water. Kind of a weird cover, but their stuff is all pretty like stream of consciousness type weird stuff. So I don't know what this is made out of. It almost looks like bagels or something. I don't know. But anyway, they're on Fantasy Records, which is, you go back to like Creedence Clearwater Revival, so that's come a long way. Produced by Chris Cody, who does a lot of sort of like alternative rock, dreamy, layered kind of stuff. Lots of different things. Anyway, all right. Reissue of the week for jazz. I think this is back to back. It's kind of hard to see there. Play the Blues, and this is Duke Ellington and Johnny Hodges. This is mastered or manufactured at QRP and mastered from the original analog tapes. Acoustic sounds, Verve Acoustic Sounds, they always do a great job. And yeah, so this has a lot of Wabash Blues, Basin Street Blues, Beale Street Blues, Weary Blues, St. Louis Blues. Get the picture. Those are always like very good sound quality for the time when they pull those recordings out. Let's see. Oh, this is kind of cool. It's embossed a little bit at the top. Lenny Kravitz and his new album Blue Electric. It's been a while, maybe four or 5 years. I can't remember exactly when the last one came out. At least 3 years, but featuring the hit singles TK421 and Human on 2 LP color vinyl with large booklet. This is the indie exclusive cover, I guess. So maybe it's the different image and then the embossing or something like that. I don't know. But they said something about this being the indie version. Lenny's still at it. And he looks amazing. Like, I mean, he's what, pushing 60 almost. Andrew Bird Trio, Sunday Morning Put On. And Andrew, great musician, fiddle player, whistler, and songwriter. And I think he might play some other stuff a little bit too, but sort of a Renaissance man now. Got into acting more and was in a season of Fargo. Played a mortician. Anyway, he did a good job. This is a limited edition ruby red vinyl, indie store exclusive of that. Yeah, the new Andrew Bird. Names that we haven't heard together for a while. Danger Mouse and Gemini, Born Again, and this is a pretty colorful cover, hip hop stuff, and indie exclusive. I don't know what makes it indie exclusive. It's probably some sort of color vinyl, but great cover. Kind of takes you back to like Miles Davis Bitches Brew type covers. And then another Danger Mouse and Gemini. This is a reissue of their classic, which was done on Lex Records maybe 20 years ago or so, featuring the Alcoholics, The Far Side, J-Zone, and Prince Poe. Ghetto Pop Life. I mean, this might be actually older than that. It's at least like 20 years old, I think. I mean, I remember selling this on CD a long time ago. And if it's got people like the Alcoholics or the Licks on it, it's not new. Kenny Chesney's new album, Born. I don't really know anything about. I sort of stopped following his career once he was accused of misrepresenting himself by Renee Zellweger, but that was a while ago. All right, I don't really know much about that, but and I'll admit that. Another sort of more like Americana country record, Kim Ritchie, and it's been a long time since she had an album too. Every New Beginning, her first album of new songs in 6 years, Floating on the Surface, Joyrider, and A Way Around on clear Coke bottle vinyl. All right, and artist again, someone I don't know much about, but I love this cover, Wallows and News of the Universe. And these are usually called the loser editions, but here it's the loser edition since it's Wallows. First pressing, limited edition on color vinyl. I think she's fairly critically acclaimed, but sometimes there's a lot of these new I call them new artists. I'm still learning too. This is why, you know, music is such a constant refreshing of information and ideas. I don't know who some of these people are, but I know some of them have either been mentioned a lot in the news, are popular enough with customers or people who have talked to me about them. That's why I sort of focus. And here's another one I don't know much about, but maybe someone out there does who likes metal. Evil Dead and Toxic Grace is the name of this record. It's kind of a funny album cover in a way, also a little bit disturbing, but yeah. So Toxic Grace by Evil Dead. And let's see. Oh, you know, I've been waiting for this record for a while, and I have an original of this, but I feel like I need to get this again. It's a 1989 Gothic dance album by the band Zymox. Now their name now is Clan of Zymox, but at the time, for a little while, they were just going by Zymox when they were signed to Phonogram, which was part of like Mercury or something like that. Universal now, Polygram, and their album Twist of Shadows. This is a really great album, sort of like, I mean, it says goth dance, and I think that's kind of accurate. There's a lot of keyboard synth textures in it, and it's pretty moody. They're from, I want to say the Netherlands, maybe? Something in that area. Somebody else, definitely my European friends here will know that. But this is a limited edition of 500 on pink and yellow vinyl in a gatefold sleeve. And it features the songs Obsession, Imagination, and Blind Hearts. Blind Hearts is just one of my favorite songs of the 80s. They were originally on 4AD Records, the same label as Cocteau Twins, and got picked up by the major. And, well, I don't know if they were necessarily made for a major, and once they kind of were sort of squeezed by the major as far as like, you know, you've done everything that we would have expected and it didn't really hit for them. They kind of broke up, and then Ronnie Moorings retreated as sort of the lead singer and musician, and kind of tried to go very dark techno, and I don't know if that really worked. Then he sort of became much more of a goth type thing, and they're still out there. They have a new record out now, or coming out. I think it's coming out soon. Pretty gothy, but this is a very sort of accessible kind of goth music, sort of like how The Cure's Disintegration was. And they also do a cover version of I forget which song it is on. Oh, it's on their follow-up album. That's right, they do Dancing Barefoot by Patti Smith on that record. But anyway, this is a very good record if you're into 80s stuff that's a little more alternative. Excuse me. I don't think that that's going to be around for very long or easy to find. Creed. I have a lot less to say about this because I think that people who came through the era of the late 90s, early 2000s know exactly what Creed sounds like. So Scott Stapp and company. This is a greatest hits album. Torn, My Own Prison, What's This Life For, One, Higher, Are You Ready, With Arms Wide Open. So I think with this, you sort of know what you're getting. And I think there are some people that might not want every individual Creed album, but would like a collection of hits. It's on 3 sides, so there's a 4th side. I guess they didn't have enough hits to fit the 4th side before they broke up, and you know, some of them formed Alter Bridge, and yeah. Let's see, a couple more reissues here. Elliott Smith's New Moon, and this is an indie exclusive metallic silver vinyl edition of 1000. And this was sort of a collection of songs that were sort of left behind when he passed away, I believe. But so it's nice that they're putting those out again. I don't know. I guess color vinyl must be a thing. I'm kidding. Drive-By Truckers. And again, another sort of reissue of an album, 10th anniversary. Hard to believe this one is 10 years old. I remember when it was new. English Oceans. And this is the greatest extant American rock and roll band by Stereo Gum. I think this is also, oh yeah, Clear Teal Wave is the color of the vinyl. So clear with a teal. Okay. I wish I had them to show, but they're in the packages. Lonnie Smith's Funk Reaction. That's a great cover. Sort of funk jazz funk, tinged with disco touches and cosmic radiance, originally released in 1977 on Sonny Lester's Groove Merchant successor, Lester Radio Corporation. Mr. Bongo Records put that one out. That's cool. They've been doing a lot of Lonnie Smith lately, not to be confused with Lonnie Liston Smith. I mean, how many people are named Lonnie Smith that, you know, you got two of them, both in jazz. It's confusing. But if you like jazz funk, check that out. That's a classic, right? Another jazz funk record, classic. But this is a sort of collection for them, the Meters. And this is one of those now playing that Rhino Records put together. So this features Just Kiss My Baby, Sissy Strut, Find Yourself, Fire on the Bayou, Funkify Your Life, People Say, Tippy Toes, Cardova, Look a Pie Pie, and Hey Pocky Away. So nice Meters collection. Cheaper than buying all of their albums separately, although many of you already have. Bill Evans Explorations. Wouldn't be a week without another Bill Evans record, right? And this is on red vinyl. It's got 2 bonus tracks. It's an extraordinary example of the reach and breadth of the trio at its peak. Let's see who is part of the trio. Scott LaFaro and Paul Motion, or Modian. I can never know how to say that. I just mentioned Scott LaFaro last week and how he died so young. So that's an earlier sort of Bill Evans thing. And let's see, there's also Punk 45. There is no such thing as society. Get a job, get a car, get a bed, get drunk. Featuring the Mekons, Johnny Moped, the O-Level, Joseph K, the Users, 23 Skidoo, and others. These comps done by this label are really, really good, though. Soul Jazz did these, so another Soul Jazz record. They had some stuff out on Record Store Day. So that's kind of it for new releases. I don't really have any CDs to show that are not represented on vinyl. I will show one, which is the new Paul Weller, called 66. I'm assuming that's in reference to his age. I think that's about his age right now. So anyway, and that is available on vinyl out there, I believe, but not cheap. His stuff is always imports, and it's always expensive. So so to keep this sort of brief, let me just give you my recommend for the week. And next week is a much bigger week. Black Sabbath's box set of their late 80s, early 90s stuff, featuring Tony Martin on vocals. So those albums are hard to find. A new Bat for Lashes, new Crowded House. If you kind of pause the video and do a close-up, you can see that column there a little bit. But let me just give my recommend here. I'm going to recommend Concrete Blonde's Bloodletting. This is an album from 1990, I believe. Yeah. Sort of hard to find on vinyl at times. I've noticed the prices get a little wonky online because it'll kind of go in and out of print a lot. But this was one of my favorite albums of that sort of era. They were sort of a punky kind of band in the 80s, coming up from Los Angeles scene with Jeanette Napolitano as the lead singer, and James Mankey as the guitarist. He'd been a member of Sparks. He was the bass player back in the early mid 70s, and he and his brother Earl were both in that band. And anyway, so they went on and formed this album, or James did, with Jeanette. And they did 2 or 3 albums, and were good friends with Michael Stipe, who kind of helped them come up with the name for their band, because he said, well, you've got hard and soft kind of edges, and I think that's a good name. And it worked for them for a while. And they actually had a couple of albums after this, kind of quickly, that were both very good. Mexican Moon was one, and I'm trying to remember the name of the other. But neither one was as popular as this, and then they sort of broke up, and then they'd kind of reunite here and there, but you know, never really like as big or as focused as they were here. This album features the top 20 American hit Joey, which was, some people say, oh, I heard that song so much, and I'm like, I love that song. It was a great song. I mean, it's kind of a sort of a typical dark song, a radio song. They kind of had a slight gothic edge, I would say, with this album in particular, because there was a lot of vampiric themes on it, and Interview with the Vampire, the movie, and the books were all sort of coming out at that time. So the first song is called Bloodletting, the vampire song. It's sort of a song told from the perspective of a vampire. Album has a very sort of kind of New Orleans-y feel to it. There's some bluesy aspects to some of these songs. I like that one, and it's kind of a longer song. Then The Sky is a Poisonous Garden is a little bit more kind of a driving song. But the songs Caroline and Joey, the songs that are about actual like people with the names, are just really excellent kind of representations of really good alternative rock pop songs of that era. Darkening of the Light is kind of got a little bit of a waltz feel to it. I Don't Need a Hero, very strong vocal from Johnette. And then side 2 has some very good songs, ending with that trio of Lullaby, Joey, and Tamara Wendy, which is also a great song and kind of a sad song in a way. I really liked this album when it came out, which was interesting because I wasn't really much of a fan beforehand. I liked what they were doing, but I wasn't like into them. And then this kind of got me into them. And then, I don't know, it sort of just fizzled in a way. They didn't get bad. Maybe it was the country was sort of all into Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and there wasn't really room for things like Concrete Blonde. You know, I think she kind of has one song here I thought was slightly a Patti Smith type vocal to it, but I think Johnette Napolitano was probably one of the best like singers on record, female of this era. What she could do with her voice and how strong it was, and you know, she kept trying, and you know, radio just wasn't really responding, or the songs maybe weren't commercial enough. I don't know, but this album was sort of the time when everything came together. The album made the top 50 in the US, which you would think, for as revered as it is now, it would have been a little more successful on the chart. And then again, Joey was like, I think it hit number 19 on the Hot 100, which it seemed like as much as it got played, it would have gotten higher. But, you know, we were kind of in that era when songs would get released from albums and people would they would either buy the album more, or it would just get a lot of airplay, and that would sort of register as being popular, but maybe it wasn't as much at the cash register. I don't really know. There were some definite games being played later in the 90s with the charts, as far as like, well, we're not going to put this song out as a single, like we won't officially release it. That way we can sell more of the actual album. You saw that happen with a lot of sort of alternative rock. You probably, if you go back and look at Wikipedia entries of songs that were hits, and you'll see that songs that are very well known, that you're like, that song had to be a #1 hit, and you look and you're like, what, it didn't even chart? Well, it didn't chart because they didn't manufacture an actual single for that record. And so in order to sell the full length, so it never really got its due as a chart. So in that, or a chart song, in that sense, the chart manipulation that goes on, you can't always really trust it. You know, it's sort of like, I'm a conspiracy theorist when it comes to charts, because even into like the 2000s, when things started moving over to streaming, you know, then they say, well, if an album gets 500 or song gets 500,000 streams, then it counts as like one being bought. And first of all, it's not bought because nobody ever spent money on actually buying that unless it was a download. And but streaming, you know, what's the financial outlay for that? But then we're counting it because of the advertising money that's being attached to it, you know, so it gets very, don't believe the charts, is what I'm telling you. Don't believe the polls. Anyway. Whoa, that was a leap. All right. Thanks, guys. I told you I was going to keep it a little shorter, so have a great weekend. Enjoy your Memorial Days, and I'll see you soon. Big stuff coming early June into mid-June, so you can see some of it there, as I mentioned. And take care, be safe, and love life. Peace.